Let's talk about social network graphs. In my mind, there are four kinds of graphs. There are friend graphs, there are follow graphs, there are algorithmic graphs, and there are metadata graphs. Let's go through examples of each. A friend graph would be like LinkedIn or Facebook, where it's mutual and bidirectional. You send a request and say, I am your friend, are you my friend? The other side acknowledges, and then both of you get connected. A follow graph is like Twitter or Instagram. You find someone interesting, you click follow, they don't even have to know who the heck you are. An algorithmic graph is like TikTok, where it looks at your actions, your behavior, metadata around what you do, and then serves you up the next video. And finally, a metadata graph is similar to an algorithmic graph, except it uses data that was put down by humans. So Google search is a prime example of this, where pages link to other pages, and then based on that, you create a web of trust or an eigenvector calculation called PageRank, and you can now say, okay, these pages are important in this query, and these pages are unimportant in this query. Of course, there are mixes of all of these, and every large social network to some extent uses data from all of the above. Friend graphs like LinkedIn and Facebook's are the most viral. You already know these people in real life. They are unlikely to turn down your request. It is easy to build a dense graph very quickly. You onboard your friends, they onboard their friends, you're all interconnected to each other, you're all there very, very fast. This is why these were the fastest early land grabs on the internet, and they got taken out first. Those spaces were occupied, and there will probably be very few friend graphs in the future. Friend graphs might be more accurately called verification graphs. They verify a pre-existing relationship. So you're just codifying that relationship and bringing it online. So they're quick to grow, and they take advantage of existing social networks. Now, how useful are they? Well, once you're in, you're not going to leave. There are no other options. But that said, there are two jobs in the graph. There's curation and there's creation. So the people who are the tastemakers and find the good content and surface it to you, and the people who create the good content. Ideally, these would be separate categories, but in reality, it's painful and hard enough, cognitively expensive for a user to build a graph, that they're not going to build two for two different use cases. The creator and curator graph tend to be combined. Friend graphs are pretty bad at curation. They're not terrible. You are likely to have similar political tastes as your friends. You're likely to live in similar geographies. You're likely to be in a similar socioeconomic status. So this is good for finding more friends, finding dates, finding jobs. And this is where Facebook and LinkedIn really excel. What they're bad at, though, is just discovering content from the mass of content out there. If some great new video is created, or some amazing new meme is spreading, or some incredibly insightful new course is available, it's unlikely that you're going to find it first through a friend graph. You're more likely to find it through a follow graph. Friend graphs are incredibly sticky, since LinkedIn's main purpose in life is helping you find more people to employ or employers to be employed by. It's basically a people finding network. A people finding network built on a friend graph is extremely powerful and is not going to be displaced. That's why LinkedIn stays so sticky, even though the product experience is quite dated. A follow graph is great for curation and for creation. Now they get munched a little bit together, but you can pick people based on their tastes in other people, and you can also pick people based on the quality of the content that they create. And if you find both in one person, fantastic. However, follow graphs are very slow to build. You're not being sent viral invitations asking, are you my friend? Instead, you're just building followers, and you yourself are just looking for signal in the noise without much to go with at the beginning. Follow graphs often start out with you following your friends, but very quickly, as you become a more sophisticated user, you branch out to strangers and celebrities. Friend graphs tend to be very flat because of the Dunbar number. You're each going to have about 100, 150 friends, maybe give or take. Follow graphs are very hierarchical. One person may have 5 followers, another person may have 5 million followers. Over time, follow graphs are the best graphs for flowing content through, simply because they are curated by other people with similar tastes, and because you can follow the creators directly. Although that does depend on what kind of content you're flowing through. So for example, when you first start out in a follow graph, you are following people you know, and you haven't necessarily selected friends and people you know for their taste or for their curation abilities. And so therefore, you're unlikely to find the best content through them. You still have to navigate to it through time. And it depends on the nature of the content. You don't pick your friends based on their taste in movies or their taste in funny cat videos. So for that, an algorithmic graph like TikTok's is superior. It just has to serve you the best cat video and has to know that you like cat videos or you prefer dog videos and then serve you the best dog video. That is a problem that is more easily solved by a computer than waiting for you to navigate your way to Cat Curator 22. For something like AirChat, for example, you do pick friends based on your ability to have conversations with them. They meet you at an intellectual, taste, socioeconomic, and interest level. And so you're likely to find other people to have good conversations with through your friends. Or you do follow people from podcasts based on what they like to talk about. And so you can very accurately choose a tastemaker. In this case, our tastemakers and our creators, our curators and our creators are nearly perfectly aligned, about as perfectly aligned as you can get with a graph. The same thing is true for Twitter. The creators and the curators are very closely aligned. On something like Instagram, creators and curators might be two distinct sets. On TikTok, they are so far separated that the curation is better done by an algorithm, while the creators are completely separate and judged on each single piece that they create. Also notice when the creators have power and when they don't. On TikTok, they don't have a lot of power because the algorithm is choosing them and making or breaking them. You're only as good as your last few videos. Yes, you do have a follow graph in TikTok now, but it's not the main thing. Same thing for YouTube. But if you move over to Facebook, you can't even build a huge following as a creator in the first place. It's awkward because the follow graph is tacked on and secondary in Facebook. It's places like Twitter and Instagram and AirChat where a creator can really build a mass audience that they can call their own due to the follow graph. Finally, the metadata graph, like Google's, is useful but relies upon a large corpus of publicly available metadata. You can find that in blockchains, you can find that on the web, and it's relatively open, so in theory, anybody can compete, although in practice, it takes a lot of compute power to do so. It's a harder system to manipulate, it's a harder system to benefit from, but SEO and SEM and so on is kind of its own category, which I think will eventually be replaced by being part of AI training data. That's going to be where the action is going to move to. In summary, I think friend graphs are mostly done. There might be some unique cases where you can still generate a new one, but it's hard to imagine because it has to be bootstrapped from pre-existing relationships. However, incredibly sticky, incredibly valuable. Follow graphs are best for creators and for content discovery. Only applies to certain kinds of content where the curators and the creators line up. Slow to build, very valuable over time, increase in value. And algorithmic graphs are good when you just have lots of disparate pieces of content and you don't have creators. And as so-called AI, although in ByteDance's case or TikTok's case, they're just really using software. As software continues to improve and metadata continues to improve, they get better at matching. But they're still going to have a very, very hard time matching people for their tastes and thoughts and conversations like a Twitter or an AirChat would do. I would be remiss if I didn't mention one very important repository of friend graphs that is outside of social networks, and that is your address book on your phone. And one of the reasons why mobile apps really took off post Facebook and LinkedIn, which were really websites, is because they had access to a mobile address book to grow. They didn't have to plug into Facebook and pay service to the Facebook API, which is extremely limited. And they didn't have to plug into LinkedIn, which didn't actually even expose this graph in any useful way. Everybody else would have been stuck, and we would have all been in ghettos around Facebook and LinkedIn if Apple and Google hadn't come along and opened up the address book on the phone and allowed any app to access it with user permission. That allowed any user to tap in and import their pre-existing friend graph very seamlessly and quickly. And so that was a good save. One could have tried growing through the same vector that Facebook and LinkedIn did, which was emails, which was the original address book. But by the time mobile apps came along and Facebook and LinkedIn were cementing their power, email viral marketing really wasn't working well anymore, as people had gotten very good at spam filtering, ignoring email friend requests, and were just saturated, overwhelmed, and already had their friend network set up.